Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 57th ever Highlight Haven interview. My name is Matthew Heiserman, and today we are joined by American University men's basketball head coach Duane Simpkins. Duane, it's great to have you on.
Matthew, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you coming on. And let's get right into it. You're obviously the current head coach at American University, but you started your basketball journey a lot earlier. You played high school basketball at DeMatha Catholic High School in Hyattsville, Maryland, where you were a McDonald's All American in 1992. DeMatha is obviously a historic high school for basketball, and you got to play under Morgan Wooten, who in 2000 became only the one of five high school coaches to be inducted into the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. Can you describe what it was like to play under him at DeMatha?
Yeah, Coach Wooten, man, is like you said, one of the best to ever do it, regardless of level. I didn't realize how blessed I was to be coached by, I didn't know he was going to be a Hall of Fame coach or anything like that. To me, he was Coach Wooten, and he was a well-respected coach, and I've always respected all of my coaches through AAU and middle school and everything. So, but not until years later, once you got to college and you started to play professionally and then start coaching yourself, did you realize, how blessed that you were to be coached every single day by such a a really good coach, but an even better person.
Yeah, absolutely. And following your time at DeMatha, you also spent 4 seasons with Maryland. During those 4 seasons, you made three NCAA tournament appearances, played under Hall of Fame coach Gary Williams, and had six teammates that wound up making the NBA, including former first overall pick Joe Smith. Can you just break down what it was like being a part of those historic teams at Maryland in the early to mid 1990s?
Yeah, tremendous times, man, especially reflecting back on it and seeing where the program is now and, a few years after that going to the Final Four and then
Yeah.
eventually
Mhm.
cutting the nets down and at the for the championship. And I take a lot of pride in knowing that my group was a pivotal part of laying the foundation for Maryland basketball that you see today. So, I was really blessed to obviously another Hall of Fame coach that I was coached by. And I played with some really good players, Joe Smith, Keith Booth, you mentioned, and Johnny Rhodes, X-Ray Hip, um, Mario Lucas, who came in with our class. Um, Shortly thereafter, we had guys like Obina Akizi,
Mhm.
LaRon Prophet, who both made the NBA. So, really, really fortunate, man, to be a part of that group.
Yeah, some great players on that team. And after spending 4 seasons with Maryland, you played professionally in both the USL or USBL and the ABA. However, what I want to focus on is when you played overseas in both Italy and China. What was it like to be able to travel the world and play basketball at the same time? Obviously, something that you love to do.
Yeah, man. I tell my players now, those that aspire to play internationally, do it as long as you can. The real world's going to be here waiting for you. But anytime that you're able to play the game that you love and get paid to do it, there's no better feeling in the world, man. I got a chance to make some lifelong relationships and friendships with coaches and players, fans, people that I stay in contact with to this day to be exposed to another way of teaching and playing the game of basketball. Again, this was a few years after the Dream Team in '92, and to see the influence of uh, that particular team on the world. You see you see a byproduct of it now where you have so many international players that are not only playing, but the MVPs, they're number one picks and everything. And, I got a chance to see, on the ground level, the emphasis of that period of time. And, but it was great to be able to play, man, play professionally overseas.
Yeah, and throughout your entire basketball career, were there any superstitions or pregame rituals that you had before games? Maybe some music that you like to listen to get yourself in the right mindset?
Some superstitions, and I never get my hair cut on the day of a game. Um, I always put my right leg through my pants and right shoe on first, tie my right shoe first for whatever
Mhm.
reason. Um, and other than that, man, that was pretty much it. Let's obviously listen to hip hop, rap, or whatever at the time before games, kind of get pumped up. But the biggest superstition, man, was just putting my right foot in my right shoe first and tying the right shoe up first.
Any specific artists that you really like to bump before games?
Shoot, then man, it was Biggie, it was Tupac, it
Yeah.
was
Mhm,
Nas, Wu Tang.
mhm.
Man, you go down the list. It was quite a few.
Yeah, I love to hear that, and when after your playing career did you really know that you wanted to enter the field of coaching and take that next step?
It was probably so I had two stints that when I played overseas. I started playing in Belgium and France,
Mhm,
and then I stopped playing for like 3 years. And during that time, I was doing group training, individual training, in addition to, I had a couple businesses that I was
mhm,
involved with. Um, and then I got to be the assistant JV coach at DeMatha. And then the following year, I was the assistant coach at Bishop O'Connell for Joe Wooten, his first year at Bishop O'Connell. And it was around that time I was like, the training was cool.
mhm.
Um, and during that time I was doing sports broadcasting. I
Yeah,
always thought that
mhm,
when I was done playing basketball, that's what I was going to get into. And the sports broadcasting, I thought I was good at it. And it was fun, but it was not as fulfilling as coaching and being on the sidelines. That was as close to being a player that I could get to. And
mhm.
that's when I really, really knew that I wanted to do it. So it was probably about 3 years after I was playing professionally.
Yeah, now you started your coaching career as a high school coach, which you just touched on a little bit, at Bishop O'Connell High School, and then you also coached at Sidwell Friends School and St. Albans School. Your first ever role in college was with Towson in 2011, where you were hired as the coordinator of basketball operations. Can you just explain how that job came to be?
Yeah, like you said, I was my first head coaching job was at Sitwell Friends. I was there for 2 years. My second year, we went undefeated in the league. We won the championship, the tournament championship, and then the following year, I was offered the job at St. Albans School, where I was for 4 years. And during that time, probably my second year, my first year, second year of St. Albans, I mean, I knew I wanted to get into college coaching, but I wasn't going to do it without my wife, Kirsten, being 100% on board. And it was probably around that second year that she said, "Hey, I'm good." And, she wrapped her mind around the fact that they're going to be long hours. There going to be times when I'm not there, traveling and things like that, recruiting, games out of town. And she finally wrapped her mind around that and gave me a blessing. And I made an active push to try to get on somebody's bench at the college level. And it took a couple years, 2 or 3 years, before I got my first crack with Pat Scarry at Towson. I was part of his first staff there as a 2012, I think it was. We didn't have a good year as a team. We were 1-31, but it was a tremendous experience, man. To see what it was like to coach on a college level. It's coaching on a college level and playing are two different things. And being in an operations position, I got a chance to be exposed to a number of things that I just wasn't privy to. Ordering the buses, ordering the
Mhm.
team meals, ordering the gear, the hotels, getting flights, and all those things. I had my hands on all of the logistics, and I credit that period in time during my career because it helped me, I think, be more prepared for being a head coach.
Now, when you first got into the realm of coaching, were there any other coaches that you looked up to at a higher level as inspiration or motivation to yourself?
Yeah, John Thompson,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
not only a coach, but an African American coach who
Mhm.
did it at a high level, was tremendously respected. He used his voice, he used his platform. He's probably the biggest one in terms of college coaches at that time. Nolan Richardson, at Arkansas was another one at the time. Um, those were the main ones I think that I kind of gravitated to during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And before you became a head coach, you worked with schools such as Towson, which we already mentioned, George Mason, UNC Greensboro. During those years, you worked with head coaches such as Dave Paulson, Wes Miller, and Pat Scarry. Where were you able to learn from them and carry on as a head coach yourself?
A little bit of everything, man. Each guy had different things that they kind of hung their hat on, so to speak, things that they believed in. Wes Miller was extremely detail oriented, was really really high on the preparation. One of the big things I got from him was watching film,
Mhm,
and not just looking at film, but actually watching it and going to the next level of determining what your team needs to get better at, but also identifying the things that the opposing team was really good at and what we wanted to take away. So I took a lot of that from him, from Coach Paulson, one of the best human beings that you could ever meet. He showed me that you can, win basketball games, compete on the college level as a coach, and not abandon your family. Um,
mhm.
Quality time with your family while you're still being the best coach that you can possibly be, and then also, his treatment of his student athletes that he was charged to take care of. And with Kim was really good at connecting with his players and making a conscious effort of using just different mediums to connect with his players. So it wasn't always, bring him into the office and sitting down with them. It was taking them to lunch, taking them to dinner, FaceTiming them, shooting, it could be texting them a scripture, it could be texting them a video of an offensive move or play. Those things
Mhm.
helps connect you even more with the guys that are on your team. So, I learned a lot from all those coaches, man.
Yeah, now when you were still a player, obviously the coaches like Morgan Wooten and Gary Williams, were you focused on their coaching techniques and did you learn stuff for them? Or at that point were you kind of more just focused on playing and you didn't really pick up as much from them?
No, I picked them up, and it was probably, I probably, I was, it was being seeped into my DNA, so to speak, as a coach.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
yeah.
those things, once I did get into coaching, they would come back up. With Coach Williams, being able to, I call it push the reset button. Coach Wooten, sorry, Coach Williams, man, we could beat Wake Forest on a Wednesday night and we can beat them by 20 points. And Thursday in practice, you would have thought we lost by 20. There was no let up. It was always having your foot on the gas. And that's something that I take with me now as I coach. I tell our guys all the time, once midnight hits the day of that game, after the win or loss, we turn the page, and we got to get ready to wipe the slate clean and do it again the next day. And with Coach Wooten, he a lot of people don't know he was a history teacher for about 35 years at DeMatha, and he truly saw himself as, you know a coach is a teacher, and he used the basketball court as his classroom,
Mhm,
and that's important to me because basketball is more than X's and O's. Basketball is truly a a perfect illustration of life. The more you put into something, the more you're going to get out of it. Learning how to deal with adversity, all the things that I learned from Coach Wooten and the experiences that I had at the math have made me a better, not just a better coach, maybe a better father, a better son, a better citizen, in totality.
Now, would you say that your time as a player sort of changed your perspective in any way as a coach going forward?
No, I would say changed it. I think there were certain things that I utilized.
Mhm,
When I played ball back in the day, we didn't have cell phones and everything. So when you went to the game, if you had a game at 11 o'clock in the morning, you got there at whatever 9:30, quarter to 10. There was a game going on before, and you're sitting there and you're watching the team, both teams that are out there. Hey, we're going to play this team. next weekend, or we're going to play them later on this afternoon. And little did I know, I was actually scouting. I'm sitting there and
Yeah.
I'm pointing out all the things that I'm going to have to take away from that other point guard. He's right-handed, but he's super right-hand dominant. I got to try to sit on his right hand and force him left. This team is really going to try to press. We got to make sure we got somebody to the middle so that when I do get the inbound, I can hit him and we can try to attack. So all of those things as a player, I carry now pretty much when I'm evaluating players that we're possibly going to recruit, teams that we're going to play. I'm back in scout mode pretty much from when I was, 10, 11, 12 years old.
Yeah, now as the current head coach at American University, what's one part of your coaching style that you really try and implement? And what are your expectations for your players?
We have four core values that
Mhm.
are really, really important to us. The first one being character. We're going to have high character guys in our program. Their family is going to be high character. If they're not, if the family is and the kids died or vice versa, then it's not going to be a good fit for us. So that's one of the main boxes we got to check. The second one is work ethic. We want workers. We want guys who are going to excel in the classroom as well as on the court. The two go hand in hand. We got to have guys that are hard workers. The third one is toughness. You're working hard. You're doing all the things you're supposed to do, but there are going to be times where it doesn't go your way. You're going to fail. You're going to miss shots. Do you have the mental fortitude and toughness to push the reset button and go at it and do it again? And then fourthly is humility. Everyone in our program understands that we have a tremendous blessing of these guys have their schooling taken care of,
Mhm.
their books taken care of, the
Yeah.
gear, the housing, their food. They're going to leave college with no bills whatsoever. And so having a sense of humility uh, when you're a part of our program is really, really important. Knowing that no one person is bigger than the program, not even the head coach. So humility is another serious core value that we have.
Yeah, now on March 19th, American faced off against Mount St. Mary's in the first four. And this is an opinion that I have, and I want to ask you about it. Do you think that teams that win their conference should have to play in a game just to make the round of 64? Because, in my opinion, I feel like those games should be specifically reserved for at large teams who deserve to make the tournament but didn't win their conference.
Yeah, like Carolina,
Mhm, yeah, absolutely, North
right?
Carolina. Yeah, that's a great
Yeah,
example.
I'll be honest, when I played back in the day, we didn't have the first four. And so once you were in it, you felt you were like in the tournament. I honestly felt like we were in a tournament, even though it was the first four. I mean, the NCAA set up a charter flight for us, and
Yeah,
the buses, we hopped off the charter and we had a police escort to our hotel. And we got to the hotel and American stuff was all over the place. We had a band playing and it felt like the tournament.
mhm,
But no, I definitely hear your opinion. And I would agree with it to some degree as well. Especially because of the expansion of the leagues now, and you got 18 teams or whatever, and 16 teams, they're playing 20 games, some of them going to 22 games next year. You know, uh, the number of those teams they're at 500 and they're making a tournament. And okay, those teams should be relegated to playing in the quote unquote first four. And and if you like you say, if you do happen to win your conference tournament and you're one bid league like the Patriot League, that
mhm.
should earn you a entrance right into the league, into the tournament.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that they don't treat you necessarily like you're in the round of 64, but I think it's almost like a broken promise in a way where they say if you win your conference, you get in, and then you realize you still have to play another game until you actually get in. But that's just my opinion. And this was your second year as the American University head coach. what would you say was your favorite or most memorable moment this entire past season?
Man, we had quite a few of them, but if I would say there's one, probably just at the end of the game, we beat Navy, and we're sitting there mid-court, and the trophy's in front of you, and all the fans are on the court, and you lift that trophy up, man, and everybody goes crazy. Awesome feeling. Then probably right behind that is sitting there on Sunday afternoon, and they're going through the brackets, and you see American University pop up, man. And it's a cool feeling.
Mhm. Yeah, now going back to that March Madness game, was the preparation heading into that game any different, or were you just trying to kind of follow the same structure that you use going into every game, keep it the same?
Yeah, there was nothing different. We did it everything the same. We had some days in between the game, but our specific prep for Mount St. Mary's didn't start for 2 days before, so nothing changed. We had our same. We had a little bit of a um, thrown off the schedule a little bit because we found out obviously Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening that we're going to play Mount St. Mary's, and
Mhm.
our intention was we were going to practice in the morning and fly out in the afternoon to Dayton. But we get a call at whatever 2 in the morning from the NCAA saying that, hey, the charter flight's going to have to leave out. I think it was at 12 or 1 o'clock or whatever. So we had to scratch our practice time in the morning, and we had to fly to Dayton, get there, unload, and then we practiced early evening as opposed to in the morning. But other than that, everything else was pretty much the same.
Now, recently you had an interview with the Full Court Network, which I watched before this one, and you were asked to describe American University using just one
Mhm.
word, and the word you chose was warm. Can you just elaborate on what makes American University a warm program and how that kind of fits in with the atmosphere and the culture of the school?
Yeah, man, we just between our faculty members and students on campus, um, there's just a lot of comfort there. A lot of people that, and in particular, when you're winning ball games, you win a championship, everything feels warm. Probably if we had finished under 500, I may have a different term to use, but when things are going well, there was so much support, man, not just on our campus, but from around our campus, and the DC as a whole. It's a really cool feeling, man, and I felt that when I was at Maryland when you were winning ball games and everything. But just a lot of support, man, and that was the first term that came to mind.
Yeah, now I do have just a few more questions before we wrap things up. I always think it's cool to hear stories from coaches and players. I think they have a lot of great stories that they can tell. Now, I wanted to ask about a story, and this could be whether it was as a coach or a player. And I was thinking, what's something specific that I could ask? What's the most interesting thing you've ever seen in a handshake line after a game?
Hmm. In a handshake line.
And if you don't have anything good for this one, I do have another one as well.
Well, it didn't happen here at American. I think this was when
Mhm.
I was at George Mason, but
Yeah.
I forgot which year it was. It's
Mhm.
probably about 3, 4 years ago. But
Mhm.
one of our assistant coaches had some words with another assistant coach.
Mhm.
It was
Mhm.
like everybody's got to kind of break everything up. But that was pretty interesting.
Now, sticking with George Mason, speaking of the interview I watched, can you break down the one recruit that was in the tree?
I don't know what there's to break down, man. He was just different.
Mhm.
I guess you saw the
Mhm.
interview with the kid. I mean, he had to have like 10 chocolate milks at dinner, and he was just chugging them. And I'm like, that's not normal. But it was what it was. And then the next day, we're walking around campus and showing him different classrooms and buildings and everything, and all of it just like he just vanished, and nobody knew where the hell he was. And we look around, and he's sitting up in a tree. That was the weirdest thing that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, go check out that interview if you're watching this one and you haven't already. That was a great one. Were there any other odd recruitment stories, funny recruitment stories that you've had?
Uh, man, I this sucks. I mean, you got ones when the dad wants to go out and he wants to hang out and he wants to try to run up a bill and stuff like that, and
Mhm,
nothing super out of the
mhm,
ordinary, man, and relative to what
mhm.
other coaches probably go through.
Now, I mean, that tree one was just unbelievable. Was there an option to not have him play that season, or was that a commitment that the school already made?
No, we were already pretty far down the line, and I mean,
Mhm.
but he was athletically, he was talented. He was
Yeah.
really, really
Mhm,
gifted. Um, and this was early in, and this might have been our very first recruiting class. Now I think about it, when I was at Mason. So it's like we're trying to get players, we're trying to get bigger and more athletic and everything. And
mhm.
I think it was the kid that we felt we had to take. Um, but he only lasted 1 year. The tree probably was a telltale sign that it wasn't going to work out.
Yeah, I mean, that's just super funny. And with that being said, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to say to the people watching before we wrap things up?
No, man, just first off, thank you so much, Matthew.
Mhm.
Awesome questions, man. I wish you all the best on
Absolutely.
your podcast, and I'd love to come back anytime. But for those people who watched us this year, or came to one or two games, continue to come out. The support is greatly appreciated. Um, Bender was rocking this year, man. We're going to try to build on it. We have six freshmen that are coming in next year, so we're going to be young.
Yeah.
But we got a core group of guys that are coming back. But I think the guys that are coming in, we're going to be rolling out some video here within the next week to highlight all of them. But we're going to be longer, we're going to be more athletic, we're going to be bigger. And I think overall more talented, and we're going to be younger. There's going to be a deficit with the experience that we have, but nonetheless, I think we're going to be a really exciting team to watch, and looking forward to having everybody come back to Bender and being loud.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And just two other things before we wrap it up over here. Congratulations on your extension with American University through the
Thank you.
2029 2030 season. And then also, early happy birthday. I know your birthday's on April 9th, 2 days from
Yeah.
now. I know you're really busy probably around this time of year, even though things just wrapped up with the season. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to join me on this interview.
Thank you, Matthew, so much, man. I really do appreciate it. And best of luck, man. Great. You have a great future with this.
Again, big thanks to Duane Simpkins for being the 57th ever Highlight Haven interview guest. And as always, we will see you next time.